The casket is small. Too small. That's my first coherent thought as they lower Caleb into the ground. My 9-year-old son's final resting place. My hands won't stop trembling. I've tried pressing them against my black dress, gripping them together until my knuckles turn white, even shoving them into my pockets. Nothing works. The tears flow endlessly, silent rivers down my cheeks that I no longer bother wiping away. My stomach knots with each mechanical whir of the pulley system lowering his casket, and my knees threaten to buckle beneath me. The cemetery worker nods at me, waiting for some signal that I'm ready for this moment. I'll never be ready. 8 months ago, the doctors finally named the monster stealing my son's strength. Rare blood disorder, they said, as if labeling it might make it less terrifying. Caleb took the news better than I did, his small face serious but determined as the doctor explained the treatments. Will it hurt? He asked, his voice steady. Sometimes, the doctor answered honestly, but we'll do everything we can to help. He never complained through 8 months of needles, transfusions, medications with names I could barely pronounce. Even when his small body was ravaged by fevers that left him shaking beneath hospital blankets, he'd look up at me with those eyes so much like his father's and say, "I'm okay, Mom. Don't worry. Amazade." Now I stand alone beside his grave, the ache of their absence, a physical pain as sharp as the loss itself. My parents, who should be standing beside me. My sister Victoria, who promised she'd always be there for us. Melissa, my best friend since 3rd grade, who held my hand through my divorce but couldn't be bothered to show up today. I pull out my phone, a reflexive gesture I immediately regret. Victoria's Instagram feed loads automatically. Photos of her engagement party at the Grand Horizon Hotel flood my screen happening right now, at this exact moment. There she is, champagne glass raised, diamond glittering, our parents beaming beside her. The timestamp shows it was posted 20 minutes ago, while I was listening to the minister speak words that couldn't possibly capture who Caleb was. Are you doing all right, dear? I look up to see Angela, my elderly neighbor, the only person who came today. Her weathered hand rests lightly on my arm, her eyes full of genuine concern. For 18 months, she brought homemade meals to our house when I was too exhausted from hospital visits to cook. She sat with Caleb when I needed to shower or sleep. She never once treated his illness as an inconvenience. They didn't come, I whisper, the words barely audible. Not one of them. I can't stop remembering Caleb's laugh, the real one, before the illness, when it would bubble up from somewhere deep and uncontrolled. How he'd declare at 7 years old that he was going to become a doctor to fix kids like me someday. The way he'd insist on wearing his superhero pajamas to chemo treatments because superheroes are brave, even when they're scared. That boy loved you more than anything in this world, Angela says quietly. I nod, remembering how Ethan, my ex-husband, had set up an $850,000 college trust fund for Caleb before his company transferred him overseas. If anything ever happens, he'd said, you're the residual beneficiary. I know you'll honor his memory. He couldn't have known how soon those words would matter. Part of me wants to call my parents, to scream until my voice gives out. How could they choose Victoria's engagement party over their grandson's funeral? Another part feels too numb to feel anything at all. I've spent 18 months fighting for my son's life, sleeping in hospital chairs, memorizing medical terminology, advocating when doctors dismiss symptoms. Now there's nothing left to fight for. My phone buzzes with a text message. My mother's name appears on the screen. We need to talk. Bring the trust documents tomorrow. I stare at the message, reading it twice to make sure I understand. They didn't come to Caleb's funeral, but they're interested in his trust fund? Something cold and analytical cuts through my grief for the first time today. Something doesn't add up. I type back, I'm burying my son today. I can't talk about paperwork right now. Her response comes immediately. Don't be dramatic, Destiny. This is important for the whole family. The whole family. The same family that couldn't spare 2 hours to say goodbye to Caleb. The reality of what's happening begins to crystallize. This isn't just about money, it's about the last thing I have from my son, his legacy, the future he'll never have. I realize with sudden clarity that I'm alone in this fight. My parents, Victoria, even Melissa, they're united, coordinating, while I'm vulnerable and isolated in my grief. What have they been planning? For how long? Angela notices my distress. What is it? I show her my mother's message, watching her face harden as she reads it. Oh dear, she says softly. They can't possibly think. I turn off my phone completely. Whatever they want, it can wait. This moment belongs to Caleb. I won't let them take that from me too. Angela places a gentle hand on my shoulder. You're not alone, dear. I'm here. The cemetery worker approaches hesitantly. I'm sorry, but we need to finish the service. I look at Caleb's casket, suspended above the open earth. Am I supposed to walk away now? Leave him here alone? My body feels frozen, unable to take that first step away. Angela steps forward. Give her a moment, please. She's saying goodbye to her boy. The worker nods and steps back, respecting the boundary Angela has created. I reach into my pocket and pull out Caleb's favorite action figure, the one he insisted on keeping with him through every hospital stay. I kneel beside the grave and place it gently on top of his casket. I'll protect what's yours, I promise, I whisper. As I stand, something shifts inside me. Through the fog of grief, a small spark ignites. I don't know what tomorrow will bring, but I know one thing with absolute certainty. They will not take my son's legacy without a fight. The morning after the funeral dawns gray and drizzly, matching my mood as I drive to my parents' colonial-style home in Oakwood Heights. I grip the steering wheel too tightly, my knuckles whitening with each mile closer to their house. My throat constricts at the thought of seeing them after yesterday after they chose Victoria's engagement party over their own grandson's funeral. I park behind a familiar silver BMW, Melissa's car. Of course she's here too. The front door opens before I reach it. My father stands in the entryway, his face a practiced mask of paternal concern that doesn't reach his eyes. Destiny, come in. We've been waiting. The living room feels like a boardroom. Victoria sits primly on the cream sofa, legs crossed at the ankle, her blonde hair swept into a perfect chignon. Melissa perches beside her, studying her manicure with sudden fascination when I enter. My mother stands by the mantel, one hand resting on a framed family photo where we're all smiling, a performance for the camera. No one mentions Caleb. No one says they're sorry. My father doesn't waste time. He walks to the mahogany coffee table where a folder lies open, papers arranged in neat stacks. We need to reallocate the trust with Victoria as trustee, he announces, sliding a document toward me. Sign here and here. I don't reach for the pen. What are you talking about? Victoria uncrosses her legs and leans forward. Destiny, you're in no condition to manage this kind of money. We're trying to help. My mother steps closer, her voice honeyed with false sympathy. You've always been impulsive with finances. Remember that boutique you wanted to open after college? Thank goodness your father talked you out of it. I glance at Melissa, hoping for some flicker of the friendship we once shared. She meets my eyes briefly before looking away, her silence confirming her allegiance. We've already spoken with Ethan's lawyer, my father says, tapping the papers. Given your mental state, he agrees this is the prudent course. The words hit like physical blows. I pick up one of the documents, recognizing legal language about mental competency evaluations. Another page catches my eye, research on trust law dated 14 months ago, when Caleb was first hospitalized. You've been planning this since Caleb got sick, I whisper, the realization burning through me. While I was sitting beside his hospital bed, you were researching how to take his money if he died. Victoria sighs dramatically. You're exaggerating again. That's exactly why we're concerned. My father pulls out another document, sliding it across the table. If you refuse to sign, we're prepared to petition for guardianship. The court will understand that grief has compromised your judgment. The full scope of their betrayal crystallizes. They dismissed Caleb's illness for 8 months, calling me overprotective when I insisted something was seriously wrong. Now I understand why they were positioning themselves all along, waiting for the worst to happen. My world shifts, reality reconstructing itself around this terrible truth. Memory after memory realigns in this new light. My mother 10 months ago. It's probably just anemia, Destiny. You always make mountains out of molehills. My father, when Caleb needed specialized treatment. These doctors are taking advantage of your anxiety. He just needs vitamins. Victoria, declining to visit him in the hospital. Hospitals are depressing. Besides, he's just going to get better anyway. I see a blueprint peeking out from beneath the trust documents. I pull it. Free renovation plans for Victoria's new house, a $200,000 kitchen remodel, a home theater, a pool with a waterfall. You never even visited him in the hospital, I say, my voice steadying with the clarity of anger. Not once in 8 months. Victoria tosses her head. impatient. We all grieve differently, Destiny. Some of us just handle it better. The casual cruelty of her words stuns me. For the first time, I see my family clearly not as the loving support system I've desperately tried to believe in, but as people who view Caleb and me as props in their perfect family image, useful only when convenient. Why now? I ask. Why the sudden urgency? Victoria exchanges glances with my parents. Something passes between them. A silent communication that excludes me as it always has. Fine. You deserve to know, Victoria says finally. Robert's development company is facing some cash flow issues. The wedding might need to be postponed unless we secure additional funding. My mother fidgets with her pearl necklace. And there's the vacation property in Hilton Head. The market turned, and we're a bit extended. We're not villains, Destiny, my father says, his tone softening to the one he uses when closing business deals. We're family facing difficult circumstances. Melissa finally speaks, her voice small. My divorce will be final next month. Victoria promised me a position at Robert's company. I need this, Destiny. I have the twins to think about. I see them now, not cartoon villains, but frightened people willing to sacrifice me to maintain their lifestyles, their status, their comfort. If you don't sign, we'll have to take more drastic measures, my father warns, his kindly mask slipping. My mother reaches for my hand. After everything we've done for you and Caleb all these years, I almost laugh. What exactly have they done? Sent birthday cards with $20 bills? Called once a month to ask superficial questions about our lives? Don't make this harder than it needs to be, my father says, voice hardening. You're not thinking clearly. Victoria checks her watch. We need this resolved within 60 days, before Robert's next project financing deadline. The desperation in their eyes tells me everything. They need Caleb's money, my money now, to solve their problems. I stand, gather the documents, and place them back in the folder. I need time to think, I say, heading for the door. Destiny! My father's voice carries the sharp edge I remember from childhood arguments. Don't walk away from this table. I close the front door behind me with quiet finality. In my car, I press my forehead against the steering wheel, overwhelmed by what just happened. My phone buzzes with a text from Angela. How did it go? I'm here if you need to talk. Before I can respond, another call comes through Ethan's parents. I answer with shaking hands. Destiny, dear. Martha's voice is warm with genuine concern. We just heard about the funeral. We're so sorry we couldn't be there. We were in Europe and just got the news. We loved that boy so much, George adds, his voice breaking. Their grief sounds real, their concern authentic, unlike the calculated performance I just witnessed from my family. As I hang up, I remember something Ethan mentioned when setting up Caleb's trust. If you ever have questions, contact Richard Donovan. He's the best trust attorney in the state. For the first time today, I feel a flicker of hope. I'm not alone in this fight. Angela, who saw how I cared for Caleb every day. Ethan's parents, who loved him without condition. Richard Donovan, who knows exactly what Ethan intended for Caleb's money. I start the car, my decision made. I won't try to fight this battle alone. I reach for my phone and find Richard Donovan's number in my contacts. Mr. Donovan's office? A receptionist answers. I need to speak with him immediately, I say, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice. It's about the Caleb Walker Trust. That same day, the law office of Richard Donovan gleamed with polished wood and leather-bound books. I clutch my folder of documents so tightly my knuckles turn white. After 2 sleepless nights researching trust law online, I'm still not sure I understand what rights I have or how my family could attempt to take Caleb's legacy from me. Richard rises from behind his mahogany desk when his assistant shows me in. He's older than I expected, with silver hair and reading glasses perched on his nose. His handshake is firm, his eyes kind but assessing. Mrs. Walker, please have a seat. I'm very sorry about your son. Thank you. My voice catches. I've heard those words dozens of times in the past week, but his tone carries genuine empathy rather than obligation. I slide the folder across his desk. These are all the documents I have about Caleb's trust. My ex-husband Ethan set it up before his company transferred him overseas. Richard opens the folder, scanning the contents with practiced efficiency. He nods occasionally, pausing to read certain sections more carefully. The silence stretches until I can't bear it. My family wants me to sign over control of the trust. They claim I'm not mentally stable enough to manage it because of my grief. The words taste bitter on my tongue. They didn't even come to Caleb's funeral. Richard looks up sharply. They didn't attend the funeral? No. My sister Victoria had her engagement party the same day. My parents and my former best friend Melissa chose to go to that instead. He removes his glasses, pinching the bridge of his nose. I remember when Ethan set up this trust. He was very specific about his intentions. Richard opens his desk drawer and pulls out a manila folder with Ethan's name on the tab. My breath catches. I wasn't expecting him to have separate records. Ethan was exceptionally thorough. Richard explains, extracting a notarized document. This is his statement of intent for the trust. He hands me the paper, and I read Ethan's familiar handwriting. This trust is to secure Caleb's future, and if the worst happens, to provide for Destiny, who sacrificed everything for his care. Tears blur my vision. Even from across the ocean, Ethan had prepared for this possibility. Had seen what I couldn't bear to acknowledge. There's more, Richard says, turning his computer monitor so I can see it. These are phone records from our office over the past year. The spreadsheet shows multiple calls from numbers I recognize immediately. My parents' landline and Victoria's cell phone. They contacted you? About Caleb's trust? My voice sharpens. Not me specifically. They called asking about trust provisions and beneficiary laws. My assistant flagged it because she recognized the names from Ethan's file. They never actually spoke to an attorney here. A clarity cuts through my grief for the first time in days. They knew about the trust terms before Caleb died. That's why they've been planning this. It appears so, Richard says, his expression hardening. Mrs. Walker, I want to be very clear about something. This trust has explicit provisions preventing family interference. Ethan built in multiple layers of protection specifically to ensure the funds would go to Caleb or to you as the residual beneficiary. They have no legal standing to challenge this. The trust is ironclad. The weight pressing on my chest lightens slightly. So they can't take it? Not legally, no. But they might try other tactics, claiming you're mentally unfit due to grief, for instance. I think of my mother's dismissive text message at the funeral, Victoria's cold calculation, my father's uncomfortable silence as they presented papers for me to sign. So I don't need to fight them for the trust, I say slowly, the pieces coming together. I just need to prove their intentions. Richard's eyes narrow thoughtfully. That would certainly strengthen your position. Do you have any documentation of their attempts to gain control? I pull out my phone, showing him my mother's text messages from the funeral day. His eyebrows rise as he reads. This is extremely helpful, he says. Now, I suggest we arrange a meeting with your family. On your terms, in a public place. 2 days later, I sit at a corner table in Riverside Coffee, a manila envelope placed deliberately in front of me. The shop bustles with afternoon customers, exactly as I'd hoped. Richard's advice echoes in my mind. Public places discourage scenes. Control the narrative from the beginning. Ask. Angela waits in her car across the street, ready if I need backup. Richard is on standby for a call. For the first time since Caleb's diagnosis, I don't feel completely alone. My family arrives together, Victoria leading the procession in designer sunglasses, my parents following like attendants. Melissa trails behind, avoiding my eyes. They take seats around the table without ordering drinks, clearly expecting this to be brief. Victoria immediately reaches for the manila envelope. So you've signed the papers? I knew you'd be reasonable. I place my hand firmly on the envelope. Before we discuss any papers, I want to know why none of you came to Caleb's funeral. My mother sighs dramatically. Destiny, we've been through this. Victoria's engagement was planned months ago. We couldn't cancel everything on such short notice. It was your grandson's funeral, I said quietly. And we grieved in our own way, my father replies, glancing nervously at nearby tables. Everyone processes loss differently. I open the envelope and slide out several photos, screenshots from Victoria's Instagram, time-stamped during Caleb's funeral. Champagne glasses raised, diamond ring flashing, everyone laughing. While I was burying my son, you were drinking champagne and laughing. My voice remains steady, but people at nearby tables glance over. Victoria's face flushes. You're taking those out of context. That's not fair. I pull out a second document from the envelope, the notarized trust terms with no amendment without grantor consent, highlighted in yellow. Ethan made his intentions very clear. This money is Caleb's legacy to me. My father reaches for the papers. Let me see that. I pull them back before he can grab them. I've spoken with Richard Donovan. He has Ethan's original statement of intent. The trust cannot be modified, transferred, or accessed by anyone but me. Victoria's carefully composed expression cracks. You don't deserve that money, you'll just waste it. Her voice carries. Several customers turn to stare. Lower your voice, my mother hisses. Why? I ask, looking directly at Victoria. Are you worried people will hear how you tried to take advantage of your grieving sister? How you couldn't be bothered to attend your nephew's funeral but want his college fund? Victoria stands abruptly. This is ridiculous. We're trying to help you. I don't need your kind of help, I say, gathering the papers back into the envelope. I'm not signing anything. Ever. My father leans forward, voice low and threatening. You're making a mistake, Destiny. We can make things very difficult for you. You already have, I reply, standing. For my entire life. But not anymore. I walk out, feeling their stares burning into my back. Outside, Angela waits in her car, window rolled down. When I slide into the passenger seat, she gives me a proud smile. You stood up to them. Good for you. My phone rings. Richard calling for an update. How did it go? He asks when I answer. Do we need to prepare for immediate legal action? I describe the confrontation while Angela drives us away from the coffee shop. Richard listens carefully, then confirms we're in a strong position legally. They'll likely try something else, he warns. But you've established boundaries, which is critical. After we hang up, another call comes through, Ethan's parents. They offer to fly in from Arizona to testify about Ethan's intentions if needed. We always knew Caleb's care was your priority. Ethan's mother says, we'll support you however we can. A text message follows from Mark, my former co-worker who visited Caleb regularly during his hospital stays. Angela told me what's happening. Whatever you need, I'm here. For the first time in weeks, I feel the weight on my chest lighten. I'm not fighting alone anymore. In Angela's driveway, I take a moment before getting out of the car. I touch Caleb's photo on my dashboard, his last school picture, taken before he got sick, his smile still radiant with hope. First step done, buddy, I whisper. Angela squeezes my hand. You did wonderfully today. I nod, staring at the horizon. But they won't give up easily. They'll try something bigger next. And we'll be ready, Angela says firmly. You're not alone anymore, Destiny. I take a deep breath, feeling something unfamiliar building inside me. Not just grief, not just anger, but resolve. They couldn't be bothered to say goodbye to my son. They won't get to decide what happens to his legacy. 3 days after the coffee shop confrontation, I spread documents across Richard Donovan's mahogany desk, my hands steady as I arrange them into neat piles. Grief still pulses beneath my skin, but something else has emerged alongside it, a cold, clear objectivity that surprises me with its intensity. They'll file for guardianship, Richard says, tapping a finger against a legal brief. His office smells of leather and old books, the kind of place where battles are planned rather than fought. They'll try to prove you're mentally unfit due to grief. It's their clearest path to the trust. I nod, studying the timeline. I've created 18 months of Caleb's illness mapped out in excruciating detail. Victoria never does her own dirty work. She'll use Mom and Dad as the petitioners, maybe even Melissa. Smart observation. Richard says, genuine respect in his voice. We need to document every interaction since Caleb's diagnosis, every hospital visit you made, every appointment they missed. I pull out my phone, opening my calendar. I have records of all appointments. I can prove I never missed a single one. My voice catches slightly. Not even the day after Ethan left abroad. Richard makes a note. And your parents? Victoria? 0 visits. Not when he was diagnosed. Not during the 3 weeks he spent in isolation after the bone marrow treatment failed. The memory stings, but I push through it. Not even when the doctors told us there was nothing more they could do. Document it all, Richard says. We don't move yet. We prepare. We gather evidence. We anticipate their attack. When they come, and they will, we'll be ready. I run my finger along a hospital bill, remembering how I'd learned to decipher medical codes and challenge insurance denials. How I became Caleb's advocate when no one else would. 8 months of treatments and not one visit from them. Not one. Richard leans forward. Destiny, I need you to understand something. This isn't just about proving you're mentally competent. It's about proving they never cared about Caleb, only his money. The words hurt, but the truth in them steadies me. Then that's exactly what we'll prove. Over the next hour, we sort through financial statements showing my meticulous handling of Caleb's medical expenses. Richard brings in a notary to witness my signing of affidavits. The preparation feels like building armor, each document another plate of protection around Caleb's legacy. They'll claim your grief makes you unstable. Richard warns. We need to counter that narrative before they can establish it. Angela has kept a journal, I say, surprising myself with this knowledge. She documented every time she helped with Caleb during his illness. She told me yesterday. Richard nods approvingly. Perfect. A neutral third party's observations will carry significant weight. I pull out my notebook. I've also contacted Caleb's primary oncologist and his school teacher. Both are willing to provide character statements. Excellent, Richard says. Now, what about Ethan? His intention when creating the trust could be crucial. I called his parents last night. They're coordinating with his attorney to document his original intentions. The words come easily now, each strategic move clear in my mind. And I've installed security cameras at my house. If they try to confront me again, it'll be documented. Richard makes a note. I'm consulting with Dr. Elizabeth Warner tomorrow. She's a psychiatric expert who can evaluate you and counter any mental fitness challenges they might bring. I hesitate before sharing my next thought. I've been collecting screenshots. Every time they dismissed Caleb's illness as nothing serious. Every text where they claimed I was overreacting. My voice hardens. They created a pattern of minimizing his condition, while simultaneously planning to take his trust fund. That's exactly the kind of evidence we need, Richard says quietly. Not just to defend you, but to expose their motives. I stare out his office window at the autumn leaves dancing across the parking lot. Caleb loved fall, the colors, the smell of cinnamon, the way leaves crunched beneath his feet. Last October, I'd wheeled him outside the hospital just so he could feel the crisp air on his face. Are you all right? Richard asks. Just remembering, I say, returning to the present. What else do we need? As Richard outlines our next steps, my phone buzzes with a text from Angela. Just heard from Martha at the hospital. Melissa was asking questions about Caleb's treatment schedule. Be careful. My stomach tightens. I show Richard the message. They're gathering ammunition, he says grimly. Melissa would have access to information about when you were at the hospital, your emotional state during treatment. She's signed something, hasn't she? The realization hits me like a physical blow. An affidavit claiming I was unstable during Caleb's illness. Richard's silence confirms my suspicion. She was my friend since 3rd grade, I whisper, the betrayal cutting deeper than I expected. She held my hand through my divorce. Victoria is recruiting anyone with inside knowledge of your life, Richard says gently. It raises the threat level considerably. I remember now Melissa's increasingly infrequent visits as Caleb's condition worsened. Her uncomfortable expression when I broke down after a particularly devastating prognosis. The way she'd stopped meeting my eyes in those final weeks. She'll claim she witnessed erratic behavior, I say, my voice hollow. And she wouldn't be entirely wrong. I did fall apart sometimes. Who wouldn't? For the first time since our strategy session began, doubt creeps in. Maybe they're right. Maybe I am falling apart. I glance at my trembling hands. Look at me. Don't, Richard says firmly. This is exactly what they want, to make you doubt yourself. My phone buzzes again. Angela, coming by Richard's office, found my journals. You need to see these. 30 minutes later, Angela walks in, carrying a stack of notebooks. Her silver hair is neatly pinned back, her eyes fierce with protective energy. Melissa can say whatever she wants, Angela announces, placing the journals on Richard's desk. But I documented everything. Every day you spent at that hospital. Every night you sat up with Caleb when he couldn't sleep. Every meal I brought because you wouldn't leave his side. She takes my hands in hers. Don't let them make you doubt yourself, Destiny. That's exactly what they want. The warmth of her hands steadies mine. I look from Angela to Richard, then to the mountain of evidence we've accumulated. My son's legacy protected by truth, documented fact by documented fact. You're right, I say, straightening my shoulders. I need to prepare for character assassination, not just legal challenges. As I organize Angela's journals into our evidence pile, I realize we're building more than a legal defense. We're creating a monument to the truth of who really stood by Caleb when it mattered and who didn't. Later that evening, after Angela left, my hands shook as I taped the last photo to the evidence board in Richard's office. It shows my parents at Victoria's engagement party, champagne glasses raised in celebration exactly 42 minutes after Caleb's casket was lowered into the ground. That's the final piece, Richard says, stepping back to survey our work. The conference room wall has transformed into a comprehensive timeline of betrayal, medical records showing every appointment I attended, financial statements proving responsible management of Caleb's medical expenses, witness statements from hospital staff, neighbors, and Caleb's teachers. A documented 18-month absence of my family during Caleb's illness. Will it be enough? I ask, straightening a document that details Victoria's unauthorized access to Caleb's medical files. Richard adjusts his glasses, his expression serious but confident. They'll file for emergency guardianship claiming you're mentally unfit, but we've anticipated every argument they could make. He taps the notarized statement from Ethan's parents. This alone makes their position legally tenuous. I trace my finger along the timeline we've created. 8 months of hospital visits, countless nights sleeping in uncomfortable chairs beside Caleb's bed. The treatments, the hopes, the setbacks, all documented with meticulous care. I never thought I'd need to prove I was a good mother. I whisper. You shouldn't have to, Richard says, placing a supportive hand on my shoulder, but people who want what isn't theirs will create whatever narrative serves them. As if on cue, my phone buzzes with a text from Angela. I read it aloud. 23 neighbors signed the character petition. A small victory, but each one strengthens our position. I've spent the past week gathering an arsenal of truth against my family's inevitable attack. Security cameras now monitor my home, recording any uninvited visits. I've documented every text, every voicemail, every social media post, where Victoria subtly questions my mental state. They're painting me as unstable, I say, staring at Victoria's recent Facebook post asking for prayers for family members struggling with mental health issues after loss. The comments section overflows with sympathetic responses, none mentioning that she didn't attend her nephew's funeral. Richard nods grimly. Classic strategy. They can't win on legal grounds, so they're trying to win in the court of public opinion first. The phone on his desk rings. Richard answers, his expression darkening as he listens. I see. Thank you for letting us know. He hangs up and turns to me. That was my contact at Memorial Hospital. Someone requested Caleb's complete medical records yesterday. My stomach drops. Who? Victoria used an old emergency contact form to gain access. The room seems to tilt slightly. They'll twist everything, I say, my voice rising. They'll find the one time I questioned a medication dosage or got emotional with a nurse and use it to make me look incompetent. They're getting desperate, Richard says. This confidentiality breach shows how far they're willing to go. I grip the edge of the table to steady myself. What else are they doing that we don't know about? Richard opens his laptop. Let's find out. He types quickly, then turns the screen toward me. They've been calling your former colleagues at the marketing firm. A LinkedIn message from my old supervisor appears. Destiny, your sister called asking about your emotional stability during your employment. What's going on? Call me. They're building a case against me on every front, I say, the anger finally breaking through my grief. They're trying to erase everything I did for Caleb. Richard closes the laptop. We need to add a defamation counterclaim to our strategy. This goes beyond the trust now they're attacking your reputation. I think of Caleb's brave face during treatments, how he never complained even on his worst days. If my 9-year-old could face down death with courage, I can face down my family with the same resolve. Let them try. I say, my voice steadier than it's been in weeks. We have something they don't. What's that? Richard asks. The truth. I answer, turning back to our evidence board. Every moment I spent with Caleb, every decision I made for him, every sacrifice, it's all here. They can't erase that. Richard nods approvingly. I'll update our legal response package to include their recent actions. By night, we've refined our strategy, accounting for Victoria's escalating tactics. Richard confirms, our legal response is complete, character witnesses prepared, evidence organized, counterclaims ready. Angela calls as I'm driving home. The security system is working perfectly, she tells me. I tested it once again while you were gone. Thank you, I say, feeling a rush of gratitude for this woman who's become more family to me than my actual relatives. Ethan's parents arrive tomorrow. They're bringing documentation about the trust's original purpose. You've done everything possible to protect Caleb's legacy, Angela says firmly. Now we wait for them to make their move. As I pull into my driveway, I realize something has shifted inside me. The paralyzing grief hasn't disappeared, but it's been joined by something else, a fierce, protective anger that burns away the fog of despair. I'm not afraid anymore. I'm angry. And I'm ready. The next morning, the sheriff's knock hits like a hammer. When I open the door, his face is professionally blank as he extends a thick manila envelope. Destiny Walker? You've been served. My fingers tremble as I take it. The weight feels wrong, too heavy for mere paper, too light for the destruction it contains. The sheriff tips his hat and leaves while I stand frozen in my doorway, the envelope burning against my skin. Inside, I spread the documents across my kitchen table and scan the heading. Emergency petition for guardianship. My stomach lurches. They're not just coming for Caleb's money anymore. They want control of me. The phone rings. Richard. They filed, I say, my voice hollow. I know. Just got the notification. How are you holding up? I stare at the affidavits attached to the petition. Melissa's signature jumps out first 3 pages, detailing every moment of weakness she witnessed during Caleb's illness. The times I forgot to eat. The night I sobbed uncontrollably in the hospital hallway. The morning I couldn't remember if I'd taken my own medication. They've twisted everything. I whisper. They quoted his medical records. Things I told the doctors in confidence. Victoria shouldn't have had access to those files, Richard says, his voice hardening. That's our countermove. The hospital ethics committee is already investigating. I flip to the next page. Financial statements showing my depleted savings account. 18 months without steady income while caring for Caleb had drained everything. They've highlighted every overdraft fee, every late payment, presenting it as evidence of financial irresponsibility rather than the reality of a mother spending everything to save her son. The hearing is tomorrow, Richard says. We knew this was coming. We're ready. But I'm not sure I am. This isn't just about money anymore. They're trying to take away my autonomy, my dignity, my very identity as a competent adult. The document before me paints a picture of a woman falling apart, unable to make rational decisions, a danger to herself without proper supervision. Have you seen the newspaper? Richard asks quietly. I pull up the local news website on my phone. There they are, my parents, sitting in their immaculate living room, sorrow etched into their carefully composed expressions. The headline makes me nauseous. Family seeks help for grieving mother. My father's quote appears in bold. This breaks our hearts, but we have to protect her from herself. I switch to social media and find Victoria's carefully crafted post, a throwback photo of us as children, her arm around my shoulders. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is step in when someone you love is suffering. Please keep our family in your thoughts during this difficult time. Mental health awareness. Family first. The comments section overflows with support for them. People who don't know us, don't know Caleb, offering prayers and praise for their bravery in helping me. They've already tried and convicted me in the court of public opinion. I say. Courts don't decide cases based on Instagram likes, Richard replies. I've filed our counter petition. Ethan's parents arrived this morning. They're ready to testify about his intentions for the trust. The hospital ethics committee has issued a formal statement about the unauthorized access to Caleb's records. I touch the silver locket around my neck, feeling Caleb's photo inside. What if it's not enough? It will be, Richard says with quiet confidence. Angela has more than 20 neighbors coming to support you. Your former supervisor has submitted a statement about your professionalism. And Dr. Levine, Caleb's primary physician, has provided an affidavit praising your medical decision-making throughout his treatment. My phone pings with a text from Angela. We're all set for tomorrow. The whole block is behind you. For the first time since receiving the sheriff's papers, I feel something beyond fear, a spark of determination, fueled by the absurdity of their claims. They weren't there, any of them. Not for one chemo treatment, not for one blood transfusion, not for one night when Caleb's fever spiked to 104 and I thought I might lose him right there in the pediatric oncology unit. I've also submitted the security footage. Richard continues, showing Victoria and your mother trying to enter your house last week when you were meeting with me. I remember coming home to find the doorbell camera notification, watching the recording of them testing doorknobs, peering through windows. We're hitting back with everything, Richard says. The restraining order request has been included in our counter petition. I look at the documents spread across my table, their lies printed on legal letterhead, made official with court stamps and case numbers. Tomorrow, a judge will read these words and make decisions about my life based on them. Get some rest, Richard advises. Tomorrow's going to be intense. But rest doesn't come. I'm reviewing my testimony for the fourth time when the doorbell camera alert flashes on my phone at 9:48 p.m. Victoria stands on my porch, alone. I consider ignoring her, but something tells me to face this. I activate the recording function on my phone before opening the door, keeping the security chain latched. What do you want, Victoria? She looks different than at the coffee shop confrontation, softer somehow, her expression concerned rather than confrontational. If I didn't know better, I might believe she actually cares. Can I come in? Just to talk? She asks, her voice gentle. No. Her shoulders drop slightly. Destiny, please. This doesn't have to be so public. So ugly. You made it public when you gave that interview. You made it ugly when you accessed Caleb's private medical records. Victoria glances toward the security camera, clearly aware she's being recorded. I'm offering you one last chance to avoid public embarrassment. Drop your opposition to the guardianship petition. Sign over control of the trust to me as administrator. We'll withdraw the petition, and no one ever has to know about your episodes. The word hangs between us like poison. Episodes? The night you called Melissa at 3 a.m., hysterical about Caleb's breathing. The time the hospital nearly called child services because you couldn't remember when he'd last taken his medication. Her voice remains sympathetic, but her eyes are cold. We'll destroy your reputation completely. Everyone will know how unstable you are. I feel a strange calm settling over me. I think you should leave now, Victoria. Her mask slips then, just for a moment. But it's enough. Rage flashes across her features before she composes herself. You think you deserve that money? You were always the burden. The problem child. The disappointment. She leans closer to the door. We carried you your entire life. Now it's time you did something for this family. I close the door without another word, my hands steady for the first time today. I immediately call Richard, forwarding him the recording. Perfect, he says after listening. Her mask finally slipped. This is exactly what we needed. It's past midnight when Angela arrives with an overnight bag. I thought you could use some company, she says, setting a thermos of tea on my kitchen table. Thank you, I whisper, unsure if I can explain how much her presence means. Tomorrow we show them what real strength looks like, she says, squeezing my hand. My phone lights up with a text from Richard. Everything is ready. Ethan believed in you. So do we. I can't sleep, so I sit in Caleb's room instead, holding his favorite stuffed dinosaur. The glow-in-the-dark stars we stuck to his ceiling still shine faintly. I take out my locket and open it to see his smiling face. Tomorrow is for you, buddy, I whisper to his photo. For your legacy. For the first time since the sheriff knocked on my door, I feel something beyond fear or determination. I feel ready. The next morning, I enter the courtroom with my head high, flanked by Richard, Angela, and Ethan's parents. The polished wood and solemn atmosphere remind me of a church, a temple where truth should matter more than performance. Victoria, my parents, and Melissa sit on the opposite side, their faces arranged in expressions of practiced concern. My stomach knots as I take my seat. It's been 48 hours since the sheriff served me with papers claiming I'm mentally unfit to manage my own affairs, let alone my son's legacy. Richard squeezes my arm gently as we settle at the defendant's table. All rise for the Honorable Judge Marion Peabody. A stern-faced woman in her 60s enters, her silver hair pulled back in a severe bun. She reviews the emergency petition with narrowed eyes before addressing the courtroom. These are serious allegations. I expect both sides to present evidence, not emotion. Her gaze sweeps across both tables. Mr. Harrington, you may begin for the petitioners. Now. Cited calls. My family's attorney rises, his expensive suit and confident posture reflecting their certainty they'll win. Your Honor, this is a case of a family desperately trying to help a daughter and sister who is spiraling after an unimaginable loss. He walks toward the bench, presenting documents with practiced solemnity. Miss Walker has exhibited concerning behaviors since her son's passing. Erratic financial decisions. Isolation. Refusal to accept help from those who love her most. I clench my fists under the table as he continues painting me as unstable and dangerous to myself and Caleb's money. When Melissa takes the stand, my chest tightens. Destiny changed during Caleb's illness. She testifies, avoiding my eyes. She became obsessive about treatments, paranoid that doctors were missing something. She'd call me at 3 a.m, hysterical. The memory of those nights slashes through me sitting beside Caleb's hospital bed, terrified as his fever spiked, reaching out to someone I thought was my friend. My isolation wasn't paranoia, it was abandonment by the people testifying against me now. My mother takes the stand next, dabbing at tears that appear on command. We're heartbroken watching her self-destruct. This isn't about money, it's about protecting our daughter when she can't protect herself. The judge's expression softens at my mother's performance. A cold wave of fear washes over me. She's buying their act. Then Richard stands, and everything shifts. Your Honor, what we're witnessing today is not concern, but calculation. His voice fills the courtroom with quiet authority. Miss Walker hasn't self-destructed, she's been systematically targeted by family members who abandoned her during her son's illness but suddenly appeared when they learned of his trust fund. He begins methodically dismantling their case, presenting complete hospital records that chronicle every appointment I attended, every treatment decision I researched and approved, every night I slept in a hospital chair. Now I'd like to call Miss Catherine Winters, Hospital Records Administrator. A middle-aged woman with kind eyes takes the stand and confirms what Richard suspected. Our system shows Miss Victoria Walker accessed Caleb's complete medical records 2 weeks ago using an outdated emergency contact form. This constitutes a serious privacy violation. Victoria shifts uncomfortably in her seat as whispers ripple through the courtroom. Angela testifies next, her steady voice carrying decades of wisdom. I watched Destiny care for that boy every single day. When he couldn't keep food down, she researched what might help and stayed up learning to prepare meals that wouldn't make him sick. When he was scared about treatments, she created superhero stories to help him understand what was happening. Her eyes find mine. I never once saw her falter. Ethan's father, Robert, takes the stand next. Though we've never been close, his testimony is clear and certain. My son established this trust with explicit instructions. He told me, Dad, if anything happens to Caleb, Destiny gets everything. She's sacrificed her career, her savings, everything to give him the best care possible. She'll honor his memory better than anyone. The judge's expression has changed, her eyes sharper, more focused on my family now. Your Honor, Richard says, I'd like to present one more piece of evidence. He plays the security recording from last night, Victoria's unannounced visit to my home. Her voice fills the courtroom. We'll destroy your reputation completely. Everyone will know how unstable you are. My calm response follows. I think you should leave now, Victoria. Victoria's true colors emerge in her next words. You think you deserve that money? You were always the burden. My sister's face flushes deep red. My mother's hand flies to her mouth. My father stares straight ahead, his jaw tight. The judge calls a 15-minute recess. When she returns, Victoria attempts to speak, but Judge Peabody silences her with a sharp gesture. Mr. Donovan, do you have additional evidence? Richard nods. One final exhibit, Your Honor. He plays an audio recording from our coffee shop meeting. The voices are crystal clear. My mother, once the guardianship is approved, we can settle Victoria's mortgage situation. Victoria, and the beach house repairs. The contractor needs $50,000 by next month. My father, once we have guardianship, we can use the money however we want. Destiny won't have any say. The courtroom falls silent. My family's attorney shifts papers aimlessly, clearly unprepared for this revelation. Judge Peabody calls another brief recess. When she returns, her expression has hardened into granite. I've reviewed all evidence and testimony in this matter. This court finds no basis whatsoever for the emergency guardianship petition. In fact, what I see is deeply disturbing, a coordinated attempt to exploit a grieving mother for financial gain. Victoria starts to protest, but the judge cuts her off. Miss Victoria Walker, I strongly suggest you remain silent. This court dismisses the petition with prejudice, meaning the petitioners cannot refile on these grounds. Furthermore, I am ordering an investigation into possible perjury by Melissa Bennett and Charles and Elaine Walker, whose testimonies directly contradict documented evidence. The judge continues, each word hitting like a hammer blow. I am granting an immediate restraining order prohibiting all petitioners from contacting Destiny Walker. The trust will be unfrozen immediately and secured against further challenges. Victoria's composure finally cracks. Her face contorts as she tries to maintain dignity while her plans crumble. My mother begins crying real tears this time. My father stares ahead, his expression frozen in disbelief. Miss Walker? The judge says, looking directly at me. This court finds you have acted with remarkable strength and clarity during an unimaginable loss. Your son would be proud of how you've protected his legacy. My parents and Victoria rise, attempting to approach me, but a bailiff steps between us, enforcing the new restraining order. Richard turns to me, his professional demeanor softening. The system worked today, Destiny. Justice was done. Angela's eyes shine with tears. Caleb would be so proud of you, dear. Ethan's parents embrace me, his mother whispering, You've honored our grandson and our son today. As I leave the courtroom, I touch Caleb's photo in my locket. The small silver frame holds his last school picture, grinning despite having lost his hair to chemo, his eyes bright with the determination that carried him through 18 months of fighting. Reporters wait outside, microphones extended. A month ago, I would have ducked my head and hurried past. Today, I stop. Mrs. Walker, how do you feel about the court's decision? I straighten my shoulders, feeling stronger than I have since the day we received Caleb's diagnosis. Today, justice was done for my son. As cameras flash, I walk toward the future Caleb would have wanted for me, one where his memory isn't just preserved but honored through strength he helped me discover. The trust fund isn't just money, it's his legacy, and I've proven worthy of protecting it. The financial advisor slides a folder across his mahogany desk. These investment options would create sustainable funding for the scholarship program while preserving the principal, he explains. I study the numbers, no longer intimidated by financial jargon. 1 week since the hearing, and already the world feels different. The Pediatric Hematology Fellowship needs to be fully funded, I say, tapping the proposal. That's non-negotiable. The advisor nods, making notes. And the restraining order? Holding firm. They can't come within 1,000 feet. My voice doesn't waver anymore when I mention my family. Strange how quickly family has become an administrative term rather than an emotional one. The local paper published a front-page story yesterday, Mother Vindicated in Trust Battle. I've received dozens of supportive calls and messages. Even Victoria's fiancé called to apologize before announcing their engagement was off. My parents face possible perjury charges, and Melissa was fired after her recorded testimony circulated through her workplace. When I leave the advisor's office, Angela waits in her ancient Buick, window rolled down despite the autumn chill. All set? She asks. All set. I slide into the passenger seat, remembering all those rides to and from the hospital with Caleb. How Angela would bring thermoses of homemade soup when cafeteria food became unbearable. How she'd sit with him while I showered or napped. Never thought I could do this, I admit as we drive. Stand up to them. Create something lasting. Angela pats my hand. I knew. From the moment you placed that action figure in his grave and made that promise. That night, I sleep peacefully for the first time since Caleb's diagnosis. No nightmares of hospital corridors or beeping machines. Instead, I dream of Caleb laughing, whole and strong, running through sunlit fields. Richard calls the next morning. The foundation paperwork is filed. The trust is locked down tight, not even the Supreme Court could touch it now. My neighbors organize a meal train. Every evening, someone appears at my door with casseroles, soups, fresh bread. Small kindnesses that would have overwhelmed me with gratitude before now feel like confirmation of something I'm slowly beginning to understand. Family isn't always blood. I pull out a photo of Caleb, not a hospital photo, but one from before, at the beach, his smile wide beneath a baseball cap. For the first time, I can look at it without dissolving into tears. I know what to do with your legacy now, buddy, I whisper. 6 months later, I stand in the pediatric blood disorder unit where Caleb spent so many hours. The walls are brighter now, painted with underwater scenes that Caleb would have loved. A plaque beside the nurse's station reads, Caleb Walker Memorial Wing. A young nurse approaches, extending her hand. I'm Jennifer Abrams, the first Caleb Walker scholar. I can't thank you enough for this opportunity to specialize in pediatric hematology. Caleb would have been thrilled, I say, and realize I'm smiling as I speak about him. Not the tight, painful smile of someone holding back tears, but a genuine expression of joy at his memory. He wanted to be a doctor himself someday. The foundation is making such a difference, Jennifer says. 3 families have received emergency housing assistance already. The Caleb's Legacy Foundation now supports families facing the same battles we fought, covering expenses insurance won't, providing emergency housing near hospitals, funding specialized training for pediatric nurses. Each board meeting brings new possibilities for expanding our reach. Angela serves as volunteer coordinator, organizing a network of people who provide meals, transportation, and childcare for families with hospitalized children. Richard handles all legal matters pro bono, ensuring the foundation's stability. You've created something beautiful from something tragic, Ethan's mother tells me during her monthly visit. She and her husband have become grandparent advocates, helping other grandparents navigate the medical system when their grandchildren fall ill. I find myself speaking at support groups, mentoring parents new to the terrifying world of childhood chronic illness. The first step is believing you can do this, I tell them. The second is knowing you don't have to do it alone. My voice no longer shakes when I speak in public. My hands no longer tremble when I sign documents. The woman who stood frozen at her son's grave has become someone else entirely, someone stronger, someone Caleb would be proud of. 1 year to the day after Caleb's funeral, I return to the cemetery. The path feels different under my feet, no longer a march toward unbearable grief, but a purposeful visit to a place of connection. I place fresh flowers by his headstone, tracing the letters of his name with my finger. The morning sun warms the granite. Excuse me, a voice calls. A woman approaches with a little girl around 7, holding her hand. Are you Destiny Walker? I nod, standing to greet them. I'm Sarah Mitchell. This is my daughter, Emma. The woman's eyes shine with unshed tears. Emma was diagnosed with the same condition as your son last year. The specialist funded by your scholarship program found a treatment protocol that worked when nothing else would. Your son's legacy saved my daughter's life. Emma steps forward, shy but determined. Thank you for helping me get better. I kneel to her level, seeing in her face the future Caleb never had. You're very welcome, Emma. Standing again, I share Caleb's story not with pain but with pride. Fighting for his legacy transformed me, I explain. I found strength I never knew I had. Sarah listens intently. The foundation is expanding? Yes. We're funding research into rare blood disorders starting next quarter. Angela's joining the board officially, and Richard's structuring the research grants. Ethan's parents are heading up the grandparent advocacy program. When they leave, I reach into my pocket and pull out Caleb's favorite action figure, the same one I'd placed in his grave a year ago. The cemetery worker had retrieved it for me after the service, understanding my immediate regret at parting with it. I place it gently against his headstone. I kept my promise, Caleb. Your legacy is safe and growing stronger every day. Standing in the same spot where I once felt utterly abandoned, I'm surrounded by the presence of those who've become my true family, not bound by blood but by something stronger. Choice, loyalty, and love. The family that matters isn't always the one you're born into, I say softly to Caleb. It's the one that stands beside you when you need them most. Angry. As I walk back to my car, the morning sun warm on my face, I realize something profound. Sometimes the deepest betrayal leads to the most powerful transformation. I'm not just surviving now, I'm living the life that honors everything Caleb taught me about courage. The whispered words freeze me in the hallway. The house alone is worth $1.3 million. I stand motionless, coffee mug suspended midair, as Evelyn's voice filters through the crack in my father's study door. My fingers loosen involuntarily. The ceramic mug slips, shatters against the hardwood floor. Hot coffee splashes my ankles, but I barely register the sting. The whispers stop. When the door swings open, Evelyn's startled expression transforms into that calculating smile I've grown to distrust over the past 3 months. At 54, she's nearly 20 years younger than my father, with a predatory elegance that suddenly makes perfect sense. Gabriella, darling. Her voice shifts from hushed conspiracy to syrupy concern. Let me help you clean that up. What are you doing in Dad's study? I step over the broken pieces, coffee soaking into my socks. Evelyn gestures casually toward the desk where financial documents lie scattered. Property assessments, bank statements, transfer forms with blank signature lines. Just helping Raymond organize for retirement planning. Her manicured fingers gather papers with practiced efficiency. Your father needs someone thinking about his future. I scan the 5-bedroom Sacramento home I've lived in for 5 years now, sacrificing my Ocean View San Diego penthouse and thriving communications career to care for him. Every bookshelf I've dusted, every meal I've prepared, every doctor's appointment I've managed flashes through my mind. And now, this woman who waltzed into our lives 6 months ago is planning his future. My stomach tightens with cold certainty. Evelyn has targeted our family for financial gain, and my father is the perfect mark. 7 years ago, I found Mom's cancer diagnosis letter hidden in the drawer of her vanity. The corners softened from repeated folding and unfolding. She'd kept it secret for months, trying to spare us all, but there was no sparing anyone in the end. I'll handle it. Mom had whispered to me in her hospital room, gripping my hand with surprising strength. Promise me you'll take care of your father when I'm gone. 5 years ago, I packed up my life in San Diego. The promotion I'd worked toward for 3 years, the friends who'd become family, the dating prospects that had finally started to seem promising. It's temporary, I told everyone, including myself, just until Dad adjusts. Meanwhile, Maxwell built his investment firm in Florida. Valerie secured tenure at her university in Texas. They send birthday cards and make occasional video calls while I measure medications and fight with insurance companies and pretend not to notice when Dad cries in his armchair, staring at Mom's empty seat. Why are you looking at property values? I ask Evelyn directly, nodding toward the papers she hasn't quite managed to hide. Her smile tightens. Raymond needs specialized care. This house is too much for you to manage. My hand steadies as I reach past her, picking up fallen documents. I notice the unauthorized transfer forms immediately, the sticky note with transfer ASAP scrawled in Evelyn's handwriting. I manage just fine, I say, holding the forms up. What are these for? She reaches for them, but I step back, scanning the paperwork. Partial property transfers, joint account authorizations, power of attorney forms. Gabriella? My father appears in the doorway, confused by the tension. At 72, Raymond Mitchell still stands tall, though grief has carved deep lines around his eyes. What happened? She dropped her coffee, honey, Evelyn says, moving to his side. Her hand slides possessively around his waist. I was just showing her how I'm helping organize our future. Our future? I repeat, unable to keep the edge from my voice. Dad's expression softens not toward me, but her. She's just helping organize our future, Gabriella. Evelyn has experience with these things. The betrayal stings worse than the coffee burns. For 5 years, I've given everything to care for him, and in 3 months, this woman has positioned herself between us. Dad, these are transfer forms for your accounts and property. His brow furrows briefly before Evelyn smooths it away with a gentle touch to his cheek. Raymond, you know how your daughter worries. We discussed this, remember? About simplifying things? I watch my father's momentary confusion dissolve into acceptance of her explanation. The realization hits me like physical pain. My father's judgment is compromised by Evelyn's influence. Whatever she's done to gain his trust has fundamentally altered our relationship. Gabriella always overthinks things, Dad says with a chuckle that doesn't reach his eyes. Your mother was the same way. The casual comparison to Mom from his lips, in defense of this predator, makes my vision blur with fury and fear. I've lost more than my career and my independence in caring for him. I'm losing him too. And I have no idea how to stop it. The next day, while thinking how to prevent the further damage, I accidentally pushed Evelyn's purse from the desk. The small orange prescription bottle tumbles from the purse, rolling across the tile floor of our kitchen. I freeze, car keys forgotten in my hand as I stare at the unfamiliar medication. The label faces away, but something about the shape, the amber plastic, the white cap sends warning signals through my body. Just looking for Dad's car keys. I call out, though Evelyn is upstairs helping him dress. My fingers tremble slightly as I reach for the bottle, turning it over to read the label. Lorazepam. High dosage. The room tilts slightly as my brain processes what I'm seeing. This isn't one of the supplements Dad takes for his mild arthritis or cholesterol. This is a powerful sedative one his doctor never prescribed. I slip the bottle into my pocket, replace the purse exactly as I found it, and grab Dad's keys from the hook by the refrigerator, where they've hung for 20 years. My throat tightens. The pieces click together with terrifying clarity. Dad's increasing confusion, his afternoon naps that leave him disoriented, the vacant look in his eyes during dinner. She's drugging him. I call Janet, my pharmacist friend from college, sending her photos of the pills. These aren't memory supplements, Gabby, she confirms 40 minutes later. They're strong sedatives typically used for severe anxiety or insomnia. Long-term use in elderly patients can mimic dementia symptoms, confusion, memory loss, cognitive decline. And if someone were taking these without knowing it? Janet's voice drops. They'd experience all those symptoms, plus fatigue, weakness, potentially dangerous drops in blood pressure. She pauses. Gabby, is this about your dad? Ka? The living room clock shows 2 p.m. time for the weekly video call with my siblings. I position my laptop on the kitchen table, the pill bottle hidden in my palm. Maxwell appears first, his Miami condo visible in the background, wearing a tailored suit despite it being Sunday. Valerie joins moments later, her glasses perched on her nose, a stack of student papers visible beside her computer. I found something disturbing. I say without preamble, holding up the pill bottle. Evelyn's been giving these to Dad. They're sedatives, not the supplements she claims. Maxwell sighs dramatically, loosening his tie. Here we go again. You're just jealous, Dad found someone. You can finally get your own life back. Are you listening? She's drugging him. Valerie adjusts her glasses, barely looking up from the paper she's grading. Maybe you're overreacting? Nurses know what they're doing with medications. She's not his nurse, she's his wife of 3 months. And she's intentionally impairing his cognitive function. Dad seems fine to me, Maxwell says, checking his watch. A little forgetful, but he's 72. The realization hits me like a physical blow. They want this. They want someone else handling Dad so they can avoid responsibility. They see Evelyn as their escape. Who's that? Dad's voice comes from behind me. I turn to find him in the doorway, staring at the computer screen with confusion. Is that one of your friends, Gabriella? Dad, it's Maxwell, your son. Dad squints at the screen. Maxwell? You look different. The silence on the video call stretches uncomfortably until Valerie mumbles something about grading deadlines and Maxwell mentions a client meeting. The call ends abruptly, leaving me alone with Dad's confusion and my growing fear. Over the next week, Evelyn's true intentions become increasingly transparent. She leaves brochures for luxury memory care facilities on the coffee table. She casually mentions how much upkeep the house requires, while eyeing Mom's antique china cabinet. Raymond might be more comfortable somewhere with professional care. She suggests one evening, her hand possessively stroking his shoulder. This place has so many valuable things that could be damaged. I spend that night checking Dad's financial accounts I've managed for 5 years. 3 have been accessed by an unknown device. 2 show pending transfer authorizations I never approved. The next morning, I find Mom and Dad's wedding photo missing from the living room. After searching the house, I discover it wrapped in newspaper, hidden behind Christmas decorations in the garage. When I rehang it, Evelyn remarks that clutter confuses Raymond's mind. Her hints become less subtle daily. You'll need to find your own place soon, she says casually over breakfast. Raymond and I need our privacy as newlyweds. My phone buzzes with a text from Maxwell. Stop making waves. Dad's life is finally settled. I sit on the porch swing that evening, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors Mom used to love, feeling more alone than I have since her funeral. Then my phone rings, Uncle Daniel, Mom's older brother. I got your message, he says, his gruff voice immediately comforting. Tell me everything. For an hour, I pour out every detail, the sedatives, the financial transfers, the gaslighting. Instead of dismissal, Uncle Daniel listens intently, asking specific questions about timelines and documentation. I believe you, he says finally. This sounds like elder abuse and financial exploitation. I'm coming down from Oregon this weekend. Your mother would never forgive me if I didn't help protect Raymond. For the first time in weeks, I feel something beyond fear, a spark of hope. As I sit on my childhood porch swing that evening, I wonder, should I confront Evelyn directly with what I've discovered, risking her accelerating her plans? Or should I quietly gather more evidence while protecting Dad from her suspicions? The direct approach might stop things immediately, but patience might allow me to build an ironclad case. What would you do when time feels like it's running out? A week later, the manila folder slides across the attorney's polished desk toward me. Mr. Winter's face remains carefully neutral, but his eyes betray discomfort. I thought you should know, Gabriella. Your father signed these yesterday. My fingers tremble as I flip through the documents. Power of attorney revocation, updated will, asset transfer authorizations. Each page bears Dad's unmistakable signature, slightly shakier than usual, but legally binding. When did they schedule this meeting? My voice sounds hollow, even to my own ears. Evelyn called Monday morning, said Raymond wanted to update his affairs. I closed the folder, attempting to control my breathing. And you didn't think to call me? Mr. Winters shifts uncomfortably. Raymond specifically asked that we not inform you beforehand. The drive home feels like moving through fog. 3 separate real estate agents' cars crowd our driveway when I arrive. Through the bay window, I watch Evelyn leading them through the house, pointing at architectural features, gesturing expansively toward the backyard. Dad sits in his armchair, looking confused, while a 4th person towers over him, Maxwell. My brother's surprise visit sends warning bells clanging through my head. He never comes without an agenda. I enter through the side door, avoiding the tour. Maxwell's voice carries from the living room. The market's hot right now, Dad. We could get well above asking price. I pause in the hallway, listening. But this is our home, Dad says, his voice uncertain. Your mother and I raised you children here. It's too much for you now, Maxwell says. Evelyn mentioned you fell last week. My heart drops. Dad hasn't fallen once since I've been here. I don't remember falling, Dad murmurs. See, that's exactly what I mean. Your memory isn't what it used to be. I step into the doorway. Maxwell looks up, his smile not reaching his eyes. Gabriella, perfect timing. We're discussing options for Dad's future care. Later that night, I catch movement in the dimly lit kitchen. Evelyn stands at the counter, transferring pills between orange prescription bottles. The sound of plastic caps twisting open and closed feels thunderous in the midnight quiet. I freeze against the wall, barely breathing. 2 for breakfast should keep him foggy through lunch, she whispers to herself. Maybe add another for the afternoon. My chest tightens with silent rage. I slip back to my room, writing everything in the journal I've been keeping since I found those first unfamiliar pill bottles. Each entry documents another piece of evidence, another crack in our family's foundation. Sleep becomes a luxury I can't afford. I drag a blanket and pillow into the hallway outside Dad's room, dozing in fitful bursts. Every creak of the floorboards jolts me awake. The constant vigilance leaves me hollow-eyed and jumping at shadows. When the phone rings, my heart races until I verify it's not another attorney or real estate agent. Evelyn takes care of that now. Dad snaps when I try to prepare his morning medications. The hurt must show on my face because he softens slightly. You do too much already, Gabriella. Let someone else help for once. I retreat to the hardware store, returning with small security cameras that I install in the common areas while Evelyn is at her weekly hair appointment. The instruction manual warns they're motion activated with limited storage. I position each one carefully, angling them toward medicine cabinets, Dad's desk, the living room where financial discussions happen. The footage uploads automatically to my private cloud account. This isn't dementia, Dr. Horton whispers after examining Dad during his checkup. She glances toward the waiting room where Evelyn sits flipping through a magazine. Whatever's happening is reversible. I've seen this pattern before with over-medication. She squeezes my arm. You're right to be concerned. Her validation releases something tight within my chest. For weeks, I've questioned my own perceptions, wondered if grief and exhaustion were making me paranoid. The confirmation feels like drawing a full breath after months underwater. The next morning, Evelyn leaves for her regular salon appointment. Dad sits at the kitchen table, staring into his coffee cup. Without her hovering presence, color has returned to his cheeks. His eyes seem clearer than they have in weeks. Gabriella, he says suddenly, why are you still here? Don't you have your own life to live? The question strikes like a physical blow. After everything, does he want me gone too? Because I promised Mom I'd take care of you, I say, the words catching in my throat, and something isn't right with Evelyn. Dad looks up, surprise crossing his features. Then something shifts in his expression, a flash of the sharp intelligence that characterized him before Evelyn entered our lives. I've been having strange gaps in my memory, he admits quietly. Yesterday I couldn't remember your mother's name. His voice breaks. How could I forget Eleanor's name? I move to his side, take his weathered hand in mine. Dad. Sometimes I feel better when Evelyn isn't around to give me my pills. He glances toward the doorway, as though expecting her to materialize. They make everything foggy. They. Hope flutters, fragile but persistent. What else, Dad? Maxwell keeps talking about selling the house. Says it's too much for me. Dad's fingers tighten around mine. This is your mother's home. Our home. I don't want to leave. 3 days later, Uncle Daniel's battered pickup rumbles into our driveway. He's driven 12 hours straight from Portland, arriving with legal documents and firm determination in his eyes. Your mother would have moved heaven and earth to protect Raymond, he says, unpacking his briefcase at our kitchen table. I've drawn up a new dual power of attorney, requiring both your signature and mine for any major financial decisions. The contrast between Uncle Daniel's careful attention and my siblings' dismissal is stark. While Maxwell texts that I'm creating unnecessary drama, and Valerie suggests I try therapy for these paranoid episodes, Uncle Daniel reviews every piece of evidence I've gathered. Dr. Horton conducts comprehensive cognitive testing, confirming what I've suspected. When properly medicated, Dad shows no significant impairment. Your father has full capacity when not over-medicated, she writes in her official assessment. No indication for memory care placement at this time. With each small victory, I stand taller. My voice grows steadier when challenging Evelyn's suggestions. The woman who arrived in our home as a conqueror now watches me warily. Uncle Daniel and I secure Dad's most important documents in a safety deposit box at the local credit union. As we drive home, I reveal my latest discovery security footage, showing Evelyn and Maxwell in heated discussion on our back patio. The perfect target, Maxwell had said, gesturing toward Dad through the window. We split the profits after the sale, 60-40. 70-30, Evelyn countered. I'm doing all the hard work. Uncle Daniel's face hardens as he watches the footage on my phone. We've got them. That evening, I make an announcement over dinner that causes Evelyn's fork to clatter against her plate. I'm planning a special 72nd birthday party for Dad next Saturday. I say brightly. I've already invited 30 guests, including old colleagues from the university. I smile directly at Evelyn. Maxwell and Valerie are coming too. Won't that be wonderful? The whole family together again. The panic that flashes across her face confirms everything I need to know. Unsturdy, I set the final place card on the dining table with hands steadier than they've been in months. Every detail of Dad's 72nd birthday party has been arranged with surgical precision, not just for celebration, but for confrontation. Uncle Daniel just texted. He's 10 minutes out with the paperwork, I tell Dr. Horton, who adjusts his bow tie in the hallway mirror. At 74, he's been Dad's physician for 20 years, long enough to know what's at stake. And Raymond's cognitive function? Doctor. Horton asks, his weathered hands organizing medical files in his leather briefcase. Better every day since I've been managing his medication again. I check my watch. Mom's gold timepiece, that's become my anchor. 3 full days without Evelyn's supplements. He recognized Mrs. Calloway from across the street this morning and remembered her husband had knee surgery last year. In the living room, Dad straightens a row of framed family photos, humming a Sinatra tune. The clarity in his eyes reminds me of the father I've been fighting to protect. When he notices me watching, he winks. Security cameras? Dr. Horton whispers. I nod. All working. Footage backed up to my cloud account hourly. The doorbell rings. Dad moves with purpose toward the entrance. No shuffling or confusion. When he opens the door to his oldest friend Frank, he doesn't hesitate before naming him and clapping him on the shoulder. Frank, how's that granddaughter of yours doing at Stanford? Frank's surprise at Dad's lucidity confirms we're on the right track. I exhale slowly. Attorney Thomas arrives next, his presence deliberately casual, portfolio tucked discreetly under his arm. We exchange knowing glances as he accepts a glass of punch. The party builds momentum, 28 guests filling our home with conversation. I'm pouring coffee when Maxwell arrives 40 minutes late and with an unexpected companion in tow. Sorry we're delayed. Maxwell announces, not sounding sorry at all. Traffic. This is Clifford Jenkins, Dad's real estate advisor. The stranger extends his hand, portfolio bulging with documents. My stomach tightens. Advisor for what property? I ask, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Evelyn materializes at Dad's side, fingers curling possessively around his arm. We'll discuss that after cake, dear. The dining room falls silent as Maxwell taps his water glass after dinner. Dad sits at the head of the table, birthday candles still smoking on his half-eaten cake. I have an announcement, Maxwell declares, straightening his tailored blazer. Dad has signed over full authority to me. The house will be sold next month, and the proceeds will help fund his care at Oakwood Village. Murmurs ripple through the gathered friends. Uncle Daniel catches my eye from across the room, giving me the slightest nod. I've anticipated this moment for weeks. Evelyn's red lips curve into triumph. Gabriella, you should start packing your things tonight. The new owners want possession quickly. Frank stands. Raymond, is this what you want? Before Dad can answer, Evelyn interrupts. We've discussed it thoroughly. Haven't we, darling? She slides a glossy brochure toward me across the table. Luxury senior living at Riverside Meadows. The cover proclaims in elegant script. The room swims momentarily as I weigh my options. Should I expose everything immediately, potentially creating chaos for Dad at his own birthday party, or wait until guests leave for a more private confrontation? Clifford unfolds legal documents on the table. If we could just review these transfer agreements. I excuse myself, step onto the back porch, and make 3 brief calls. When I return, Uncle Daniel is already explaining the situation to the assembled guests. Raymond and I executed a dual power of attorney last Tuesday, he says, sliding documents from his briefcase. Any financial decisions require both my signature and Gabriella's. The documents Maxwell claims to have are nullified by this filing. Dr. Horton places medical records beside the birthday cake. I've been Raymond's physician for 2 decades. These tests from Tuesday show completely normal cognitive function when he's properly medicated. Attorney Thomas approaches Clifford. I'd advise against proceeding with any property transfer. The legal problems with what's being attempted here could constitute elder abuse charges. Evelyn's confident smile falters as I connect my phone to the television. Since we're making announcements at Dad's birthday party, I have one of my own. The security footage plays in high-definition Evelyn in the kitchen at 2 a.m., transferring pills between bottles, carefully relabeling them. Those are supplements, she stammers, her voice rising. For his memory. Diazepam isn't a memory supplement, Dr. Horton replies. It's a sedative that can cause confusion and impaired judgment when misused. Maxwell edges toward the door. Evelyn assured me Dad wanted this arrangement. I was just trying to help. I turn up the volume as the recording continues Maxwell and Evelyn in the kitchen 3 days ago. Voices clear through the hidden microphone. The house alone is worth $1.3 million. Maxwell says on screen, Dad's the perfect target. We'll split the profit after the sale. The room goes completely still. Valerie, who has remained silent throughout, picks up Maxwell's phone from the table, where he left it moments ago. Her hands tremble as she scrolls through text messages. Dad's the perfect target. We'll split the profit after the sale, she reads aloud, her voice breaking. The exact same words, the exact same plan. As the evidence mounts, Evelyn's mask slips further. Her fingers clutch her purse, the same one where I found the sedatives, the first piece of evidence that started it all. This birthday party has become exactly what I planned. Not a celebration, but a reckoning. The whispers stop when I place my evidence portfolio on the coffee table. Through the silence, I notice Maxwell's fingers drumming against his thigh, Evelyn's throat working as she swallows hard. Even with 30 pairs of eyes watching, she attempts one final, desperate play. Those medications were doctor-recommended supplements for Raymond's confusion, Evelyn says, her voice higher than normal. Her hands tremble as she reaches for my father's arm. Tell them, honey. I watch Maxwell scan the exits, his expensive suit suddenly too tight across his shoulders. The real estate agent, Clifford, backs away from the stack of papers on the side table, shaking his head. This is all a misunderstanding, Maxwell announces, stepping forward with forced confidence. We're trying to help Dad. Gabriella's been overwhelmed with his care. Evelyn leans close to my father's ear, her lips barely moving. She's trying to control your money, Raymond. Don't let her. Dad frowns, looking from her to me with the clarity I've safeguarded these past 3 days by personally monitoring his proper medication. Clifford retreats further, clutching his briefcase to his chest like a shield. "I won't be proceeding with any paperwork today," he mutters. I square my shoulders and lift the portfolio. Weeks of vigilance, documentation, and strategic patience compressed into one leather-bound folder. My hands no longer shake. "Dad invited you all here to celebrate his birthday." I begin, addressing the room filled with longtime friends, neighbors, and family. "But you're also witnesses to something else." I open the portfolio, extracting the medical reports Dr. Horton helped me obtain. These show high levels of sedatives in Dad's system medication not prescribed by his doctor. I pass them to Uncle Daniel, who begins circulating them through stunned hands. These bank records show unauthorized transfers from my father's accounts to joint accounts recently created with Evelyn. More papers make their rounds, punctuated by gasps and murmurs. I pick up the remote and press play. The living room television flickers to life, showing night vision footage from the security cameras I installed. There's Evelyn, 3 nights earlier, carefully transferring pills between bottles in the kitchen at 2 a.m. What we're witnessing is elder abuse, medication tampering, and financial fraud. I say, my voice steady. Dad stands straighter than he has in months. I haven't needed memory care. I needed to be free from whatever she's been giving me. "This stops today," I announce, meeting every eye in the room. My father is not for sale. A chair scrapes against hardwood. Valerie rises, her academic composure fractured by shock and shame. She crosses the room to stand beside me, finally seeing the truth I've been shouting into the void for months. The living room falls silent, except for the ticking of Mom's antique clock. The birthday cake sits uncut on the dining table, surrounded by cheerful decorations that now feel absurdly out of place. Family photos watch from every wall, Mom's smile preserved in dozens of frames, witnessing this moment of reckoning. Dad slowly removes his wedding ring, the gold band Evelyn insisted on during their courthouse ceremony 3 months ago. He holds it out to her, his voice stronger than I've heard in weeks. "Our marriage was built on lies. Take it." Evelyn's mask finally slips completely. The calculated charm vanishes, replaced by naked fury. "You all think you're so clever," she hisses, snatching the ring. "This house is worth a fortune. The art alone would fund my retirement." "Gabriella gave up everything to care for me," Dad responds, standing taller with each word. "What did you sacrifice, Evelyn? Besides your integrity?" Maxwell edges toward the door, but Dad moves with surprising speed to block his path. "You were willing to sell your mother's home?" he says, his voice breaking. "The home she loved, where she raised you. For what, a percentage?" "Raymond, I can explain," Maxwell begins, but Uncle Daniel interrupts. "I've contacted the authorities about elder abuse and fraud," he announces, phone still in hand. "They're very interested in speaking with both of you." The remaining guests watch in stunned silence as Evelyn's composure collapses entirely. "I wasted months on this old man," she shouts, flinging the ring against the wall. "Playing nurse, listening to stories about his precious Elizabeth, waiting for the payoff." 2 police officers appear in the doorway, directed by neighbors who heard the commotion. As they lead Evelyn away, reading her rights, the birthday party dissolves into shocked conversations and hurried departures. Later, when the last guests leave, Dad sinks into his favorite chair, looking suddenly smaller. "What happens to us now?" he asks, his moment of strength giving way to uncertainty. Before I can answer, Valerie approaches, tears streaking her makeup. "I'm sorry," she whispers, kneeling beside his chair. "I should have listened. I want to help repair the damage I ignored." I look at them both, the future suddenly wide open and terrifying in its possibilities. The morning sunlight streams through Dad's kitchen window, casting golden patterns across the breakfast table. 3 months after Evelyn's dramatic exit from our lives, I watch Dad measure his own medication with steady hands, his movements precise and deliberate. "Bridge club at 2, he announces, checking his pocket calendar. "Then coffee with Phil and Gary from the veterans group." I smile over my laptop, where I'm finalizing a marketing proposal for a new client. "Need a ride?" "Lucille's picking me up." He winks, says my Buick makes her car sick. My phone buzzes with an incoming message from my supervisor at Coastal Connections Marketing. "Presentation looks solid. We're lucky to have you on board remotely." The arrangement still feels miraculous, challenging work I can do from Sacramento while Dad rebuilds his life. Mrs. Winters, the part-time caregiver who comes 3 days a week, has given me breathing room to reclaim parts of myself I'd forgotten existed. Dad pauses by the window, gazing at Mom's rose garden now blooming again after years of neglect. Your mother planted those pink ones the summer you graduated college. Instead of changing the subject as he once would, Dad pulls out a weathered photo album from the bookshelf. He settles at the table beside me, turning pages with reverent fingers. Here she is, he says, pointing to Mom standing proudly beside her roses, her smile radiant despite the illness that must have already been taking hold. She never could keep gloves on while gardening. Said she needed to feel the soil. I rest my hand on his shoulder, still surprised by these moments when grief surfaces without drowning us. You know, he says, turning the page to a family Christmas photo, your mother would be proud of how you protected our family. His voice breaks slightly. I'm sorry I couldn't see what was happening. You weren't yourself, I remind him, still. He turns another page. Next month, I want to visit Sedona. Your mother always wanted to see those red rocks. I grin. Road trip? Already mapped the route. He taps his temple. Still got my navigator's brain. The doorbell chimes, and Uncle Daniel arrives carrying a bottle of sparkling cider. Valerie follows, her arms full of groceries. Got those historical records you wanted, Ray? Uncle Daniel says, settling into what's become his regular chair since moving to a condo just 20 minutes away. Dr. Horton arrives last, his bow tie as impeccably knotted as ever. We gather around the table, not a formal celebration, just Tuesday dinner with the people who proved their loyalty when it mattered most. Uncle Daniel raises his glass. To family that's earned the title through actions, not just blood. I've learned who I can truly count on, Dad says, his gaze moving meaningfully around the table. Later that night, Valerie's looking at teaching positions at Sacramento State, Dad mentions as he carefully places Mom's photo on the mantel. Then, surprising me, he adds a framed photo of me from last Christmas. Side by side, the two images create a statement about what matters. As I watch Dad arrange those photos, I wonder about forgiveness. Should we eventually reach out to Maxwell, offering a path to redemption? Or are some betrayals too fundamental to repair, making a clean break the healthier choice for everyone? What would you do when a family member has shown who they truly are?